so today we're going to have a look at how you find the gradient of a straight line graph. So the key formula you're going to need in today's video is this one, and that says gradient is equal to your change in y over your change in x. So first of all, you need to pick two coordinates which are on the line. So I'm going to pick this coordinate here. My x ordinate is 2 and my y ordinate is 6. So my coordinate is 2, 6. And then you pick another coordinate on your line. So here my x ordinate is 0 and my y ordinate is 3. So now I have found two coordinates which are on my line. I always draw in this triangle because that helps me work out what my change in y is, and we're looking at my y-axis. So my change in y, it goes from 3 to 6, which is a change of 3. And we always have to divide that by my change in x. So this is where we're looking at the width of that triangle. So my change in x, it goes from 0 all the way to 2. So my change in x is 2. So therefore my gradient must equal to 3 over 2. This is the same as 1.5. In the exam they would accept either answer. Right, so pause the video now if you'd like to have a go at this question before I go through it. Okay, so having a look at this second question, again we remember that formula at the top of our page. Gradient is change in y divided by change in x. So on this one I'm going to pick this coordinate here. My x ordinate is 6 and my y ordinate is 4. It doesn't matter which coordinate you pick on the line. Okay, the next coordinate I'm going to pick is here. My x ordinate is 0 because it's on my y-axis, and my y ordinate is 1. So now again I can draw in my triangle, and I know my change in y. Well, my y ordinate goes from 4 all the way to 1. So therefore we've got a change of 3. And my x ordinate, it goes from 6 from 0. So that's a change of 6. Now to work out my gradient, I know that it's change in y, which we said was 3, over change in x, which is equal to 6. This is the same as 1/2 or 0.5. You can give this as any of those three answers to get full marks in your exam. Okay, so having a look at question 3. It's asked us to do a very similar task. However, it wants you to find the equation of the straight line L2, but it tells you that L2 is parallel to the straight line graph L1. We know that if two lines are parallel, that they have the same gradient. So first of all, we need to work out the gradient of L1. So again, we can pick two coordinates on our straight line graph. So I'm going to pick this coordinate here. My x ordinate is 4 and my y ordinate is 5. I'm going to again pick this coordinate here. My x ordinate is 0 because it's on my y-axis, and my y ordinate would be 3. Again, we can draw in our triangle. We know our change in y is our difference between our y ordinates, or the difference between 3 and 5 is 2, and the change in x is the difference between my x ordinates, which in this case would be 4. Therefore, my gradient would be my change in y, which is 2, divided by my change in x, which is 4. This is the same as 1/2. The bit of extra work it tells you here is that it passes through this point 0, 5. Okay, so if we just picture that graph 0, 5, or that coordinate 0, 5, we know that it must pass my y-axis through 0, -5. So my straight line would come up something like this. This tells me the end part of my equation. So I now know my line is y equals to the gradient x minus 5. So in question 4, they've told you what two of the coordinates are and they want you to find the gradient of that line. It doesn't come with a picture. So the first thing I would always recommend you do in your exam is by just draw a quick sketch of those coordinates. So we know it goes from 2, 7, which is my coordinate A, all the way to 9, 21. And that's my coordinate B. It does not have to be an accurate drawing, just a quick sketch. Again, we can now work out my change in y and my change in x. My change in y is how my y ordinates change. It goes from 21 to 7, so that has a difference of 14. My change in x is how far across we've gone. Well, this has gone from 2 to 9, which is a change of 7. So now my gradient must equal to change in y divided by change in x, which equals to 2. Pause the video now and have a go at this question. Okay, so having a look at question 5. Again, I would start by drawing a quick sketch of these coordinates. My first one is at 4, 2, and this is coordinate A. My second one is at 6, 14, and that is coordinate B. I again now want to find the gradient of this line. So I look at my change in y. We've gone from a y ordinate of 14 to 2, so that's a change of 12. And then we look at our x ordinates, it's gone from 6 to 4, which is a change of 2. So therefore my gradient must equal to 12 over 2, which is a gradient of 6. Having a look at question 6, it is quite similar to the previous question. However, they've given you the gradient of the line and you're missing one part of your coordinate. So again, just like before, I would always recommend drawing a diagram. So our first coordinate A, we've got an x ordinate of 5 and a y ordinate of 9. And then part B, it's gone across by D and we've gone up to 15. So we're now told that the gradient of the line is 3. So we know that that means change in y over the change in x must equal to 3. We can work out what the change of y is. We know that the change of y is the difference between my y ordinates, which is a difference of 6. And then the change in x, well, this goes from D all the way to 5. But we know we're trying to make this equal to 3. So therefore, my change in x must equal to 2, because 6 over 2 equals to 3. So we now know that this must have a difference of 2. Therefore, D must equal to 7 for this to be correct. So our coordinate, or our value of D, so our x ordinate, would equal to 7. Pause the video now and have a go at this question. So again, we need to draw a diagram and plot our coordinates. Our x ordinate of A is 2 and our y ordinate is 10. Our x ordinate this time is 5 and our y ordinate is D. Because this has got a positive gradient, we know that our line is going to increase, so D must be above 10. So now we can work out our change in x and change in y. So our change in y we can't work out at the moment because we don't know what D is. However, our change in x is the difference between 2 and 5, which is a difference of 3. Again, if we just start with our formula, change in y over change in x equals to our gradient, which we're told is 4. So this time we don't know what our change in y is, However, we do know our change in x is 3. So we've got to think about what our change in y must be for this to work. So we now know that our change in y must equal to 12, because 12 divided by 3 is equal to 4. So therefore our change in y must be 12. So we know our y ordinate is 10. D must be 12 greater than 10. So therefore D must equal to 22.